the mitochondrial aconitase and the anemia. The mitochondrial aconitase is a hydrolase-like enzyme found in the mitochondrial lysozyme. This enzyme participates in cellular metabolism from the Krebs cycle by carrying out the isomerization of citrate to isocitrate through cis-aconitate. Its substrates are citrate and isocitrate, of which citrate itself can act as an inhibitor. These data were obtained from brain enzymes. As Gardner mentions in his research, aconitase-sensitive target in measures of superoxide in 2002, this enzyme is highly susceptible to oxidative damage due to its center composed of iron and sulfur. Since iron tends to bind to hydroxyl groups of the substrate or solvent, that is why when aconitase comes into contact with reactive species such as superoxide and hydrogen peroxide, this releases an iron atom, leaving a molecule of the form 3Fe4S, leaving the enzyme inactive. The fact that the enzyme is inactive can have repercussions on the Krebs cycle, decreasing the generation of NADH and thereby affecting the supply of electrons in the transport chain. Also, it can affect the production of reactive species, which under physiological conditions are necessary to carry out cell signaling processes. Likewise, the accumulation of citrate may contribute to the decrease of mitochondrial metabolism, inhibiting the enzyme citrate synthase. Based on various investigations, such as that carried out by Dr. Laura Castro at the University of the Republic, it has been shown that in both the brain and the heart, aconitase exerts great metabolic control in the respiratory chain, meaning that by inhibiting only 5% of the enzyme activity in these organs can have serious repercussions, such as the one we will see below. Hyperchromic anemia, as Kamashila mentions via NIH, is a disease that derives from the deficiency of hemoglobin synthesis in the precursors of red blood cells. This is due to the mutation of the mitochondrial conveyor of the Fs cluster. These mutations are due to several factors, including inhibition of aconitase, which, in addition to the one mentioned above, may also be due to the abnormality of an enzyme called glutaredoxin 5, responsible for forming iron-sulfur groupings. In short, both the union with reactive species and the absence of glutaredoxin cause inhibition of aconitase and thus brings diseases such as hypochromic anemia due to the lack of red blood cells and iron. According to the Mayo Clinic, anemia is a disease that mainly affects children and pregnant women, and some of its complications are extreme fatigue, complications in pregnancy, heart problems, and even death. Given the most vulnerable sector of society, the proposal will focus not directly on treatment but on prevention, before they receive evidence of the disease. To begin with, we know that this disease tends to start during pregnancy, so the fundamental thing must be to perform a preventive hemoglobin analysis to the mother, preferably by catheter, since they are much more viable to ensure that hemoglobin and iron levels are normal, as well as to know where you have any anomaly or risk of developing any problem related to anemia. The costs for this study are between 200 and 400 pesos. Also, considering using glucometer, as it measures the hemoglobin level, and if you reach an outside level, you may come with your doctor. Later, knowing where the baby is likely to be born premature, as this also poses a danger to developing this disease. Finally, and in case everything went well during childbirth, perform a taste type study of neonatal genetic testing, which analyzes biochemical parameters in the blood to detect diseases. This proposal complies with the following ODSs: good health and well-being, providing a new alternative to avoid the development of severe disease such as anemia, thus reducing the mortality rate of people and the risk of such diseases. Decent work and economic growth, as we are pushing institutions to ensure that health services remain available and help people deal with adversity through basic services. In addition, support is encouraged for workers in laboratories and hospitals engaged in such studies. Partnerships for the goals. Promoting new strategies, in this case that impact on people's health and encourage the participation of both patients and health organizations and institutions to work together, create strategic alliances with suppliers, with the government, and thus achieve disease prevention more quickly and effectively. In conclusion, metabolic problems are a factor for diseases such as anemia, so it's important to keep in mind studies related to the enzyme mitochondrial aconitase, as well as to keep in mind that there are means of prevention in this disease from an early age, or in this case, since pregnancy through prenatal studies. It's important to take into account the role of biotechnology in these problems, in order to be able to do future pharmacological or genetic research in the health area.